Hi. So in this video, I want to talk about combo boxes. And what I want to talk about is the property row source. Now, one thing that I want to make sure that you understand is that this content that I'm going to give you is based solely on when the row source type is table/query. Okay, so I just want to make sure. If you have that value be something else, then this information wouldn't apply. Although I will tell you that for your final project, your row source type needs to be table/query for all combo boxes. Okay, um, so uh, that's the first part of what I want to tell you, but now what I want to talk about are the lists and what kinds of lists that you can have for your combo boxes, okay? And the lists are determined by what you identify in the row source property of the combo box, okay? So, as I said, this is for the row source type table/query. And there are two different ways that you can identify a list for a combo box or a drop-down list for a combo box. Okay. The first one is that you can pull the data from a table. Now you can do that directly or indirectly. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Or the second way that you can pull information is you can base the information on previously entered items. Okay. The final thing that I want to talk about is the expectations for your final project. Okay. So let's first address the row source property for when you have data that's being pulled through a table, either directly or indirectly. Okay, so here is a combo box right here, when due, in the rubric database. Okay, and so you know that I'm referring to that because it's got the orange all the way around it. It's selected, and you come up here and the row source is blank. Okay, now I can do one of several things here to indicate the list. I can type the name of a drop-down list, or actually a table. Okay, so I'll just go here and I'll look. Okay, so for this example, I would use the table TBL drop down when due. Now, I did name my table drop down so that I would know that it's a drop down list, and that's the purpose of it. But here it is. It says TBL drop down when due. Okay, so that's one way you can indicate a list, and that would be directly from the table. Another way is that I could go over here and I could create a query. And so I can go here to query design, and I could use that when due table right here. Okay, the TBL drop down when due. Okay, and then I can just bring all my items down. Okay, and then if I wanted to sort it in a certain order, I could. Okay, and then I just wouldn't hide that third. I would hide that third item. And just to see what the query looks like, I can go here and run it, and this would be what would be available for the drop-down list for me to include. Okay, so then I can click on close here, and I can say, do you want to save design changes to the query, and I'll say yes. And so then I might call this, let's see, QRY drop down when, oops, when due. Okay. And so then now I have built a query. And if we go over here and I look for it, query, there it is right there. Okay. So it's already in the navigation pane. So I can come over here now. I'm still referring to the when due drop down list here in my property sheet, and I can say QRY, and then it just guess drop down when due. Okay, and it is in the list here, right here. Yeah. So anyway, so I could do that. I could indicate a query. Another way, I can wipe this out. Another way that I can do it is I can build the query inside of the combo box. So I can just I just clicked on the build button, okay, and I can come down here to when due, and I can click on add and close, kind of like I did when I built the query, but now I'm just building it inside the combo box, right? And then I'll bring this down, and I won't make it show, but I'll make it ascending, and then I can even run it to get the example of what it's going to look like. And then I can click on close, and I'll say yes. And now here is it brings me back here, and here's an SQL statement. Okay, so that is another way to build the list for the combo box. Okay. Okay, so my next example is going to show you about pulling records from already existing data. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and use this student city as our example. Okay, and if you go through and you look here, there's a number of different entries in the various records. Okay, so there's already information entered. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll go into design view of this form. Okay, and right now it's not a combo box. Right now the city field on this form is a text box. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change it to a combo box. So before we move forward, I want to make sure that you understand what the record source for this particular form is. It's kind of obvious, but I'm still going to go and point that out. And so I'll come here, and you can see that the record source for this form is TBL student. Okay, and so that's an important piece of what I'm trying to explain. Okay, so let's go back here to the record source, or I mean to the combo box that we've just switched from a text box. So over here is the row source, and it is empty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use or build an SQL statement that can be the row source for this particular combo box. And the SQL statement will be based on the previously entered data or cities that have been entered in this form. So I'll go ahead and click here on the build button, okay? And then I will come here, and this looks familiar to you because you're just building a query, but you're going to see it in the form of an SQL statement instead of a graphical view of the query. Okay, so we'll double click here, and we'll use the TBL student, and that's the same table that the form is using, okay? Because that is where the city field is, where all the previous entries for the city that have been entered are, okay? So, and I will come down here and I will find the city, okay? Now, I want to probably sort them in order. Now, when I run this, just to test it, it's always good to test it before you get out of building this, just so you see what it looks like. You can see there are duplicates here, so you don't really need or want the duplicates. So we can go back in the design, and we can just do a group by or query, and we can run, and now we don't have any duplicates. Okay, so we can go back to design view, and we can save this and then close. Okay, so now when I come and I go into form view and I click here, you can see all the entries or the options. Okay, so that is how you build the row source for pre-existing, pre-entered data. Okay, so let's go back here to our PowerPoint. So in this video, we've talked about how to pull, use data from a table that's existing, okay, for our list, our drop-down list, okay, and we've talked about how you can pull directly from the table, you can use a query for that list, or you can build an SQL statement, okay, and then we've also talked about previously entered items and how you can use an SQL statement based on previously entered items. Okay, so those are two options that you can use, and either one is fine for your final project. If you use the option where you have a table that you're pulling your list from, then you need a form for that list. Okay? If you have a situation where you're basing your list on previously entered items, you do not need a form for that. Let me explain why, okay, for each. The user needs to be able to change the information that's available to those lists. Okay, so if the user can't edit those lists, then it's a problem. That can be frustrating to the user. Okay, so with specific lists, then the only way that the user can change a list that comes from a table is if you provide them a form. Now, if you base your list on previously entered items, then the user is able to edit the options that are available, right? Because the user can just type in a new a new entry into the form. And so there doesn't need to be a separate form so that that new entry can be added. Okay, so hopefully those two things are clear. You do not need a form for when you're basing your list on previously entered items. Okay, but it is really important that you do base your provide a way for the user to edit the list if you just pull from a table either directly or indirectly. All right, so thanks very much.